don't see him as of yet, but who knows? Aha, there we go. A couple of people anyway. All right. Oh, and let me go. Heaven forbid I don't record attendance. Somebody doesn't. Somebody gets sick. All right. So I've got. And Andrew, I saw you on Zoom, right?
That's right.
Yes. All right. Look at that. I can even remember people's names now. Okay. So would you like me to fill you in on the backstory to all that stuff that you might not know? So obviously, Shorty was a state senator. What you might not know, you might know this, and Emilio might remember this, he might not, but he became state senator by defeating me in a primary election for that office, right? This was in 2010. And it still is, talking about that is like ripping off a scab. It still is not just terribly enjoyable. Because there were 4 of us in that campaign, 4 of us running for that office. And as you remember, in Oklahoma, if you're in a campaign with more than 2 people, if no one gets over 50%, it's going to throw you into a runoff election, right? And so we're out there. I'm doing all the stuff that you tell candidates to do. We're raising as much money as we can. Because I made the decision to run late, I'm behind on fundraising, and we're spending it as fast as we get it in, right? Out there, putting signs up all over the district, knocking doors like crazy, making phone calls like crazy, everything you can possibly imagine to do. And about 3 weeks, about 3 weeks out of the election day, we decide, let's do a poll and see where we're at, right? The other 2 candidates, hadn't seen much of anything of them, right? I don't think I'd ever seen them out knocking doors. I hadn't gotten any mail from them, nothing, right? So hadn't seen anything from them. Didn't know where Ralph was going to land. So we do this poll, and it comes back, and it's basically an automated poll, so it was pretty cheap to do. It comes back, and I'm at 46% is what they're saying, right? Well, I can win this and not have a runoff, right? So we even double down. I mean, we're doing more of everything, trying to push it out. So we get to election day. Election day shows up. We have a little watch party around. We're watching the results come in. The first results reported, I was at like 55%, right? And we were like, oh, this is awesome. And then as the evening came on and more reports came in, it started going down and down, right? I went to 53, then 51, then 50, and I ended up at 40, literally at 49 point. In fact, let's just pull up. You can find this on the state election board website. The results of pretty much any election in Oklahoma. There we go. This was Senate District 44, so it's Brooks Senate District. Now he also ran against Shorty. For Shorty's re-election. So he didn't run against him the same year I did. He ran against him 4 years after that, and he lost too, right? So Shorty, the power of incumbency is real. Let's just say, okay, here we go.
And this guy ended up being like like sleeping around with like little boys or whatever,
17.
17-year-olds.
Let's see.
Said like 4 times in the interview, he was like, is this guy really, like, is he really below 18?
Oh, that's state road.
Wait, so were you what party did you run under?
What's that?
So what were you like a Republican or Democrat?
I ran, at that time, I ran as a Republican.
Alright.
Yeah. All right, that's the runoff. I need the primary. There we go.
Is every state election like that, runoffs, if it's not over 50%?
Some states have a different rules.
I know the Georgia,
So,
the national senate, it was like that.
right. So each state has different rules. Most of them have a runoff provision, although some now are modifying it because it costs a lot to run another election, right? And so some of them are experimenting with other ways of doing that. Okay. Let's go here. What is that? Oh. Sorry, it's taken me to, they have one giant document and you have to go scroll through the document to find the particular election you're looking for. And I don't understand how they have these organized. So give me just a second. I am, because I don't want to be accused of misquoting how close I was to winning that, although I haven't memorized because it's still like an open wound. Where is all this stuff here? So what struck you? You watched it, Preston. What struck you about that? What was?
About which part, the whole thing or what?
Yeah, what stood out to you?
It was just like very, it was just a very eerie feeling, just watching Ralph Shorty and then going to the hotel room and everything. And everything about it. I mean, he campaigned against marijuana. Campaigns against, like basically gay stuff that he's kind of like participating in. And he campaigned against something else that basically he would have been. I think he did something else to campaign against, but was kind of related to that. And it was just odd, kind of like just weird. And then it was even, I thought it was amusing that the police officers didn't know who that was, and they got filled in by their boss. That is the Ralph Shorty.
So you basically won, but
Oh yeah, so this is the result. So if you know, I'll pull out my,
only 2,000 people voted.
yeah, I mean, listen, it's a primary election and an off-year election with an incumbent that everybody assumed was going to win anyway. So turnout was abysmal, to say the least.
How many people live in the district? Or
Who's got your pocket calculator on you? My phone is not cooperating. All right, so divide 1,239 by 2481.
0.4,
Yeah.
49.939.
Yeah, right.
49.
49.9%, right?
Yeah.
Got to have over 50. How many votes would have got me over 50?
Like
About 13.
Yeah, something like that.
Three.
Three.
Ridiculous.
Wow.
3 votes. You can check it. Check it
Why
and make
didn't you just
sure
call
that I'm
us?
not lying.
Should have called us.
Oh, just add 3 to that 1239. So divide
pushed you over the finish line.
1242. Divide 1242 by 2481.
What is the Yeah.
It's over 50, right?
Yeah.
3 lousy votes.
Wow.
And the guy, so there's an elected official in Oklahoma County right now who I've known forever, who talked me into running this race, right? He's the first one who called and said, you need to run. And I was, at the time, I was like, no, I don't. I had just started a new business with a couple of partners. I was working a full-time job. Wasn't making any money in the business yet because I had a, because it was new. And I was like, this is not a good time. He's like, this is the best. You're not going to have a better shot. You need to run, right? And then he starts calling mutual friends of ours to get them to call me and tell me I should run, right? So I let him talk me into this. We get to election night. We watch these results end up coming in, and he goes, James, if I knew you were going to be that close, I could have found 5 more people to vote for you. What were you doing?
I would.
But you don't save anything. This is, elections are do or die. You either win or you don't. You don't go, and he's, I could have found it. So Shorty and I get into a runoff, and he just obliterates me in the runoff. I mean, it's not here. We'll go. I'll see if I can find. Oh, I can, because yeah, they're right there.
Wow. 3 votes.
Yes, 3. Now, you want to know a real kicker on this? I had 5 family members who lived in my district who couldn't vote for me. 3 because they were registered Democrats. There's the 3.
Wait, so even though it was
Because it's a primary. It's a primary election. And in Oklahoma, you can't cross over parties to vote in a primary.
could you switch parties?
They could, if you have up until roughly 30 days prior to the election. And I didn't even think about contacting my family and saying, now you are registered in the right, didn't even think of that, right?
Oh.
And I had my sister and her husband, who were also in the party. They were registered in the right party, but they had moved into recently to get their registration changed. So they couldn't vote for me. So I could have won this if I'd just taken care of my family.
Wow.
Right?
That is.
Lessons you learn on the campaign trail, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so disheartening.
And yeah, not for a long
How
long
bad were you?
time.
I don't know what I would do.
I was not a happy camper. So yeah, so the numbers are almost reversed. So you can see 1239 to 941 there. And the numbers for the runoff, I'm gonna put them over here now. Almost complete, 1306 to 934, right? Just completely. And apparently the work I did, so as soon as the runoff, so before the primary election, I contacted the other 2 guys. No, it's not showing me what I want to see. Oh, well. I contacted the other 2 guys and said, oh yeah, Peters and Wines, and said, hey, if you don't win, will you endorse me for the runoff? And they both said yes, right? So the very first piece of mail that I send out to voters in the runoff is one promoting that, and as you can see, probably none of their voters even showed up to vote in the runoff.
Yeah.
Right, and they're not included at all. That might have been enough to make a difference. But 2240 is the runoff, 2481. So yeah, about what you find here. So likely these folks never bothered to show up. And of course, I had a bunch of people who were like, well, I just thought you'd win because you were so far ahead in the primary, right? He was like 36, 37% in the primary election. And I'm like, so anyway, so he goes on to win, and then he goes on to become a child porn king or whatever, and
Wow. That's 3 votes away from child.
right,
porn. Wow.
right. Now, understand, so the state senator before him also spent some time in jail. So that's the whole reason this seat became open, is because she stepped down. And then it came to find out that she had made an arrangement with a state representative and basically said, if you fund this new position in the State Department of Health or something, whatever, and guarantee that I'll be the one who gets that job, I won't run for reelection as state senator. And they make the deal and they create the position. And then it all comes out. And she ends up spending, I think, about a year in jail, in state prison. And he spends way more than that, 2 or 3 years, I think. So she goes to prison, then Shorty goes to prison. My thought has been, maybe it's just as well I didn't win. You know, who knows, right?
Maybe that seat's cursed.
It could be. Now, so far, Brooks, I don't think he's going to end up in prison, but he's done okay to keep
He's an
himself out of
attorney,
trouble.
so he probably knows.
He knows where the lines are, right?
What's the story behind that lawyer, Chad Alexander?
The what? What about him?
I've heard he has a little bit of a legal, some issues in his background.
He was caught, not with a child, but I think I don't know if he served time or was just on probation, but he was caught with some type of opiate abuse or something like that, something along those lines. It was pain, if I remember right. I could be wrong, but if I remember right, it was pain medication that he was abusing in some way, shape, or form. And needless to say, he is very much on the bandwagon of drug reform, right? But he's a good guy. Like I said, you won't find anybody in the state right now who knows more about Oklahoma politics, especially in the last 30 years, than he does, because he has just been immersed in them. And because he has been immersed on the Republican side, he knows just about everybody on that side, right? In some way, shape, or form. So, but yeah, that's his deal. He got caught with something like that. Yeah, and I thought, as I was watching that episode on Shorty, a couple of things. Number one, I was really glad because there were rumors going around that his wife had been involved in some way or knew what was going on. So I was glad at the end they were like, we have no evidence that she knew anything was happening, this kind of thing. So I was glad they put that in there.
How did Dog the Bounty Hunter? I heard something. How did he get
Okay,
involved?
so he was running, Shorty was running some kind of legislation relating to bounty hunters in Oklahoma. And I think it was an effort that Dog the Bounty Hunter was promoting nationally in all the states. And so he came down here for that for some reason, and they struck up a friendship, and Shorty was on an episode of Dog's show, and they became pretty good buds.
And along the way, I guess the bounty hunter thought he became smart with Oklahoma politics.
Right, and so, and listen, there were things that you could see on the inside during the campaign to know Ralph had problems telling the truth about a lot of stuff. And it's more than just the kind of typical politician double speak or something. I mean, it was clear. There's no line between truth and lies to him. It's all the same. And so, now I was like everybody else, when you hear what actually happened, you're like, oh my gosh. And of course, him being the family values, protecting kids against drugs, all of this kind of senator, it just makes it even worse. They come down on him really, really hard.
Is there a place I can watch this?
Yeah, you can go to their website. Let me see if I can bring this up.
I'll watch this.
I just see what Expert said, Dr. Stacy said, like some political message on it. That was like kind of his wearing goes kind of different or use continent, what was it, like Super 8 or something.
And I'll share this with Andrew if he's probably like, when are we going to talk about something interesting? But
Oh no, I've been enjoying this.
I'm going to share this. This is so it's CNN's headline news division that did this, and it's this this series here, Lies, Crimes, and Video, that is the thing. So if you click on that, the last time I looked at it, so so yes, so you should be able to watch it from there. Let's just see.
Hotel room. Come out here and talk to us, or we're coming in with a teenager.
And once you open the door, it
Okay, so you notice the T-shirt. Did you notice?
That's
What did it say?
Dr. Stacy said something about it. I couldn't see what it said.
Yeah. So let's go back here. Ooh, right. So it has a Bible verse at the top. Okay, from Ephesians that is it's referencing the passage that says, "Wives, submit to your husbands." Blah blah blah. Right. Then it has the sandwich. And then underneath it, it says, "Now go make me a sandwich."
Oh my.
Yeah,
God.
right.
What?
So
You can't make this up. This is insane.
that's exactly what the other two guys, or a couple of them, there were two media guys. There was Scott Mitchell, who does a couple of Channel 9 political shows. And then the reporter, Nolan Clay, for the Oklahoman, who basically broke the story. Yeah.
What's this show called again?
Lies, Crimes, and Video. And if you want to go to the HLN, I just Google HLN channel or HLN network, and the first thing that pops up will be that. And then you got to scroll down and find the series. And then when you open up the series, then you got to go find the
those police officers, they didn't know who they were dealing with. As far as I was concerned, he was just another guy doing wrong.
yeah, that was what was really funny is,
This is the funniest part.
See what
oh yeah,
secrets he's hiding. Oh my God, not my friend. It's a complete
not my friend.
Lies, Crimes, and Video. Sunday at 9 on HLN.
Did they talk about how 3 votes, like, could have prevented all?
No, they didn't talk about any of that. It was
Oh, they
just
should've.
Is there a reason like none of the state senators or representatives talked about it? They're not allowed to, or is it just they're being polite and didn't talk about it?
I think most of them did not want to be within 30 feet of this mess, right?
So does that mean Michael Brooks has his current office?
The only reason he has the office is because Ralph Shorty went to jail. They had a special election.
But that's where
And
his office was located.
I don't know if he's in the same office that Shorty was or not. They switch around quite a bit. So
I'd like to think of that office. I don't know. Even though
actually, I don't know if I'm going to email or call the producer. It's the producer who contacted me initially to do the interview, and I'll call her and see if there's a way to watch it after the fact, because I thought you could watch it here, but it looks like it's just the trailer.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is just crazy. And the fact that, he lies, and it's so obvious he's lying in that interrogation, right? I mean, they've got,
Is he really only 17?
yeah,
That's the best part.
can you show me that he's only 7? Oh, the funny thing was the police officer's response to that. Yeah, and I can take you downtown and book you into jail too if you want, kind of a thing. So, but the police had no idea who this was when they got there, and it's not until the investigators. And so, as they point out, he thinks it's all gone away. A week or two has went by, and nobody said anything, and he thinks it's all gone away.
Yeah, the Fox News interview that morning.
Yeah, and the morning, and then he gets a phone call from the Oklahoman reporter saying, "I've got to ask you about this." And he says, "Well, sure, ask me whatever." And he's like, "What were you doing in a room with a 17-year-old boy?" You know? And he's like, "I'll get back to you."
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Another thing, interrogation, I thought was interesting. And he had acted, it was like, he took his line along the way and then like trying to like pull it off. And then the police is like, it's not the end of the road. He's like, actually.
Yeah, it is. It
At
is.
that point, it's like he just blew off his whole efforts of line.
And so what they found is they found the text messages between him and the young man that clearly showed they were there and it wasn't just to smoke marijuana, right? And then the FBI gets involved. And I forget how they got drug into it, but the FBI gets involved and they do an even deeper dive and find all sorts of stuff on Craigslist where he's been out there for years trolling for young men, right?
Wow.
And
Man, you should have found that on him.
well, I think they went back to 2012 is when they first
Oh.
stumbled, so it was still after mine. But yeah, that would have been, now see, that would have been an attack ad that would have been relevant, right?
Yeah. that
Don't
would've
vote for
been
Shorty, he likes little boys.
nice.
You don't want to get that because that puts people like dog drowning, like whoever else you have to call with a bounty on your head.
Right, right. So, yeah, so I mean, it was just a mess and I felt really bad for his wife and they had 4 kids, right? So I felt really bad for all of them and he uses his coffee shop as a location to meet these young, so he has this little coffee shop, which was marketed to church folks as the place to go after church, right? And he names it Holy Grounds.
Holy grounds.
What?
Yeah,
the
and-
heck?
And so
This is a good story to make a show about. Wow.
I'm telling you,
This
he-
is
he-
It's the food way. It's like WHOLO.
the truth is stranger than fiction. Let me just tell you. And what was interesting to me is the FBI guy that they interviewed was like, "Oh, we got lots more that we just can't tell you about," right?
Oh, so how long? This guy's in jail the rest of his life. He has to, right?
He's in jail. I think no, it was a 15-year sentence or something like that. He'll be eligible or be able to be released in 2030 or 2031, something like that. Yeah.
But they dropped the state charges, so it could have been in longer, right? If they didn't have the federal.
Well, if the state had decided to prosecute him too, yeah, they could have. And I don't know what the statutes of limitations are on this kind of stuff. If they're not real short, they might be able to come back and prosecute him when he's out of Fed, right?
Be doing this well past this 15-year sentence, in addition to being
Yeah,
a felon.
yeah, he's gonna be a felon. He'll be a registered sex offender wherever he, goes, all of this kind of stuff.
That's good. Good. That's.
I gotta wonder what that's like for his kids, because by the time he gets out, they'll be like well at the age where they're gonna
Yeah,
start
his
working
oldest
on-
ones will definitely be. My understanding is his wife had all of the kids' last names changed.
Right.
Just like,
Will they want, like, they want to like know their father at all?
I don't know.
would know.
I would not. I'll just be honest with you. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, see you later. Go away.
Yeah.
But
3 votes.
3 votes, and it could have been a different scenario.
Yeah, that. I'm
But
sorry about that. That's.
but if
Everything happens for a reason, then I guess.
well, that's what I was going to say. If I had won, then I wouldn't be here, right? And you guys wouldn't have the pleasure of being in my class and that kind of stuff.
Hey, maybe that guy wouldn't have got caught.
What was your term limits if they might do it one day?
So that's 2010, so 2022. So this coming, next election, I would have been term limited out.
So you'd be like, I guess the only person I would think of like back then is like what, maybe Frank Simpson.
Maybe, yeah.
So a lot of them were kind of like in that dead term. Right?
Yeah. I think Eccles ran in 2012. Yeah, because we visited when he was going to run. He wanted to make sure I wasn't going to run for that seat. Not that he would have had anything to worry about. You know, if I can't beat an unemployed child perv, I'm not going to beat a well-known attorney who has lots of money. So
Kevin still have any other political background for the ship?
no,
Just
he
business
was
man,
just a
boss.
business guy, had no political experience. I don't know if he gave to, I don't know if he contributed money to, I'm assuming he probably did, but I don't know that.
Mattresses?
No, he's got a, what is it?
Oil and gas.
No, it's not oil and gas. It's a mortgage
He owns a
company.
mortgage?
He owns what is the name of his mortgage company? I can't remember right now. It's a pretty big deal. It's a national
mortgage
company.
in Tulsa.
Yeah.
I wonder how that works, because I've been to Tulsa, and I've seen the homes in Tulsa. And I wonder which one he sells.
Well, he just finances the mortgage. He doesn't actually sell the homes,
Oh.
right? So he's just the finance guy. But his business is national. I mean, he's got business in most of the states.
Definitely probably a millionaire.
Oh, I'm sure.
Multi-million.
I'm sure. Yeah. And it hasn't been without its controversy too. So I mean, nobody is going to be in politics who hasn't had at least some accusation of made against them, if not.
I haven't heard
Actually-
anything like Kevin State, honestly.
Yeah. There was some controversy about his company, but I
Oh,
think
his company.
his company. Yeah.
Or like that, just like.
The state of Georgia would not allow them for a period of time to sell mortgages or finance mortgages in their state for some reason. I can't remember what it was.
Certain business dealings.
Something like that. I don't know what it was. I just know that they did. There may have been one other state that did too. As far as I know, that's all been dealt with. So, but
Somehow,
anyway.
I just realized in the last several weeks, I've been seeing all these Eccles and Associates ads. I never put two and two together. That was the same John Eccles in the ad.
Oh,
In the house.
that's
I
him.
looked at it,
Yeah.
but that sure looks like John Eccles.
He's got a couple of businesses. He's got a law firm, and then he's got some other business too. I can't remember.
I know Jason Lowe's a lawyer, he's a really good lawyer.
Yeah, lots of. Used to be that was the route, right? You went into law, and then you went into the legislature, and if you were lucky, you ended up in Congress or something, right? And now there's not nearly as many attorneys running, and I don't know if it's the fact that for a while there, and I guess still today, there's, people aren't fans of attorneys, the old saying, no one likes an attorney until they need one, type of thing. And so you don't see them dominating the legislature as much as they used to.
Was Savage ever a legislator?
Savage, the writer,
I think
the guy with Nonda, or who are you talking about?
He works in downtown Oklahoma City. I don't know if he's a lawyer like Bell Bondsman.
I don't know. So, well, let's talk about, while I've got you here, we're going to cover real quickly, and I haven't finished these out. This is one of the things I've got to do, is get caught up just on last week and this week. But just real quickly about the executive branch. We've covered a lot of this before, so I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. And then we'll just move on. All right, so are you gonna work with me now? Okay, good. All right, so we know that the people who created the Oklahoma Constitution didn't like the idea of concentrating power anywhere, especially not in the governor's office. So they limited the governor's ability to control the executive branch by a couple of ways, right? One, creating a divided executive where you have all these other elected officials that aren't accountable to the governor, right? And then by limiting the governor's direct control over many, if not most, state agencies and such, right? So prior to the last couple of years, these boards, especially there was the Oklahoma State Board of Health, was the oversight and the managerial responsibility for the Department of Health. And while the governor could appoint people to it, so does, if I remember right, the board's comprised of appointees from the governor, the speaker, and I think the president pro tem, right? And the governor doesn't have any, once they're on the board, hasn't done any real effective control over them, okay? And this was common throughout state government, that you see this kind of stuff. And so it really, if you think of the executive branch as the one piece of government that actually needs to be cohesive and needs to function effectively, it's the one piece of government that having power diffused within it can complicate and make it less effective. This is what Oklahoma governors have and continue to deal with to a certain extent, right? As you know, the legislature over the last couple of years have given the governor more control over some of these positions, specifically appointing the heads of major agencies. So again, the State Board of Health would be the ones who appointed the administrator of the Department of Health for Oklahoma, right? Not the governor and this type of thing. And you guys had a discussion post. There were lots of discussions back and forth. I'm not going to rehash all of that. Just to say there are good and bad arguments on both sides of these, right? You can make a case either way. And right now, the state seems inclined to consolidate some of this power under the governor's authority. Just a reminder, right? If I want to be governor in Oklahoma, I have to be 31, I have to be a US citizen, I have to have been a qualified voter in Oklahoma for at least 10 years. And remember, Oklahoma does have a process whereby if you're a registered voter and you haven't voted basically in the last 8 years, you can be removed from the voter registration rolls and you would have to re-register. And they've got a whole process to do that by. They've got a whole process to review the records and make sure, and they contact the people, or at least attempt to contact them before they take them off. But it's about 8 years, if I remember right, is if you haven't voted in 8 years, you might not be on the voter registration rules anymore. And they have a 4-year term, they're limited to 2-year terms, $147,000 salary. They also receive transportation provided for their official duties, right? So they have vehicles, which the highway patrol or the highway patrol are basically provide security and drive them around. And there's an airplane that the governor has access to move around the state. And then they have a residence, the governor's mansion, that serves not only as a residence, but as a place of entertaining of, people from other state governments, even people from out of the country, this kind of thing. So the formal powers of the governor, which remember are not super huge, but the governor can issue executive orders. The governor appoints judges. Remember, that's in conjunction with that judicial nominating commission, right? So they will review candidates for judge positions, forward a list of 3 names and applications to the governor, and then the governor chooses one of them to be a judge. And that's for those appellate level judges in the state, all right? And the governor can grant pardons and reprieves, but again, this power has been somewhat, quite a bit diluted in this by the creation of the Pardon and Parole Board, which was created, I think, back in the 1950s. So it's not like the president who can just go off on a whim. Now, if somebody is going to be pardoned in Oklahoma, the governor basically has to have a recommendation from the Pardon and Parole Board to do so, okay, before he can issue that. the governor can extradite criminals. So somebody who, creates or commits a crime in California, they flee, they get caught in Oklahoma. The governor is responsible for making sure they get shipped back to California to face their sentence or trial there. We obviously know the governor is required to deliver the State of the State address, right? That is a constitutional requirement. They must deliver that message prior to the beginning or at the beginning of each annual legislative session. Okay. And then the governor is also expected to provide a budget proposal to the legislature, which they are not required to do anything with, and they can throw it in the trash can as soon as they get it if they want to, and sometimes they do. Okay, so although he's expected to provide that, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get what he wants. The governor can call the legislature into special session, and we've seen that over the last few years, especially in the towards the end of Mary Fallon's administration. She had several special sessions that were called with dealing with budget issues. The governor does appoint a variety of people to different boards and commissions, so that is one of their powers, and the use of the veto or the line item veto. Remember, the governor does have that power where they can veto just a portion of a bill rather than the entire thing, right? Something different, the president can only veto the whole thing or sign the whole thing. They can't veto just sections of a bill out. The Oklahoma governor can do that. All right, so there's the governor. We've got multiple, as you know, multiple other elected officials in the executive branch. These officials have varying degrees of importance, okay? The lieutenant governor, not very important, okay? I mean, the lieutenant governor is pretty much like the vice president. They don't have a whole lot of heck of a lot to do. They can very much kind of make up their job to be whatever they want it to be. But to be lieutenant governor, I do have to meet the same qualifications as the person serving as governor. I am officially designated as a member of the governor's cabinet. Your textbook will tell you that the governor can hold the lieutenant governor accountable for things that they're assigned to do via the cabinet. I'm not quite sure that's true. I don't know how the governor would hold the lieutenant governor accountable for anything. And a good demonstration of this is last year, Mary Fallon's administration. She's dealing with budget issues. She recommends a package of tax increases. Todd Lamb, who was lieutenant governor at the time, who had his eye, thought he was going to be the next governor, opposed that and resigned from her cabinet, but remained being the lieutenant governor. So, and Fallon did nothing, and I don't know that there was anything she could have done to prevent him from taking that step. So I'm not sure exactly how they think the lieutenant governor could be accountable or held accountable by the governor. The lieutenant governor acts as governor whenever the governor leaves the state at all, right? So Governor Stitt decides to cross and go into Arkansas for some reason. At that point, he's no longer governor. Matt Pinnell is governor, right? Until Stitt returns. Yeah.
Does that mean at that point then that everyone below the lieutenant governor moves up for rank technically, or did they just leave it?
No, and you can't look at stuff like that. The lieutenant governor is the only one who moves up, so to speak. Everybody else stays where they're at. But in effect, if Stitt was out of the state for 2 or 3 weeks, they would be answerable to Matt Pinnell more than Stitt, right? Now, I am sure, especially with modern governors and the ease of communication, there's a lot of communicating. If there's any issue that crops up that the lieutenant governor is not sure how the governor would want it handled, they probably contact them before they just make a decision. But that can be problematic. What if you have a governor who's a Republican, but a lieutenant governor who's a Democrat? And the governor leaves the state for, a week and something comes up. And the Democrats like, I'm going to do this and I don't care what the governor wants, right? So you can have that kind of situation. The lieutenant governor is the presiding officer of the state senate by the Constitution. As we've kind of mentioned before, the lieutenant governor doesn't show up in the state senate unless there's a tie vote, in which they can break that tie vote. But they can't serve on Senate committees. They can't submit legislation to the Senate. They can't vote in committees, any of that kind of stuff.
So he's just kind of hanging out.
Just kind of hanging out. I'm sure if you ask the lieutenant governor, they would tell you about all the important stuff they do, and how important any of that is. You will have to be the judge of, right?
Supposedly he's the secretary of tourism and.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if they did formalize that or if that's just kind of, okay, we need the lieutenant governor to do something here. You can play around with tourism or whatnot, right?
I just saw that in the book. I was like, oh, I guess he does do some small thing.
Kind of tourism, like the
I think it's like
Arbuckle Mountains.
state tourism. stuff like
Yeah,
that.
all that kind of stuff. So anything that's a state park, a state owned and operated park, the Department of Tourism more than likely heads up, that kind of stuff.
Was it just like handle funds or just like?
Properties to sell or properties not to sell, regulations about, who can fish in Oklahoma lakes and all that kind of crap. Did I say that? Sorry. Okay, you have the Attorney General, right? So as the textbook says, the chief legal counsel to the state. So when the state's in a legal dispute with another state, this is who represents Oklahoma. When the state is in a legal dispute with one of its citizens, this is who represents Oklahoma, or at least his office does. If Oklahoma has a case before the U.S. Supreme Court, likely that it's going to be the Attorney General arguing in front of the court for Oklahoma side.
Is DA David Prater, is he a part of his?
No, they're
Office, or he like a federal attorney?
so the district attorney is a state officer, and I guess technically they would fall under the state attorney general, right? So the attorney general can issue guidelines and rules that district attorneys would have to abide by, as well as legal opinions. So when I worked for Oklahoma County, oftentimes we would ask the district attorney or the attorney general for a determination about whether or not something was legal or not legal, that kind of thing. And so if the attorney general comes in and says, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do this, then the district attorneys are bound by that guidance. Outside of the courts, the attorney general is kind of viewed as the legal authority in Oklahoma. They're going to be the one, and that's why I say state agencies oftentimes will seek legal guidance from the attorney general to make sure they stay out of trouble. And so that's how they're viewed. So unless it goes into a court and a judge somewhere rules, what the attorney general most usually says is what goes. Okay, unless somebody just wants to press the issue. All of these offices, by the way, and you'll see that on all of these slides, all of these offices, 4-year terms, and they are limited to 2 terms.
Where's
Right?
his office at?
It's in the Capitol, building. We went by it, I thought, or saw it.
I
It was on
never,
the first floor, wasn't it?
I think so. It's one of the early floors, first or second floor or basement, somewhere around there. But yeah, it's in the Capitol.
so whenever Governor Stitt has a meeting with his Senate Pro Temp and the Speaker of the House, Attorney General, and the State Auditor, they're all sitting under the same roof, just thinking about each other.
Yeah, right. The state treasurer, again, much of the state treasurer's duties are pretty much prescribed either by the state constitution or laws passed. So they don't have a lot of discretion in how they conduct their office. They basically receive money and disperse money and keep track of it, okay, on behalf of the state of Oklahoma. They manage, so I'm sure you're familiar with the 527 fund, right? This is for parents can save money tax-free for their children's college education, right? That fund is managed under the state treasurer's office. A couple of other similar kinds of funds are. They do, so state monies that are not being spent, so state monies that are in like the rainy day fund, the treasurer is responsible for investing those wisely, right? Not doing a lot of speculation. Oh, I'm going to buy some GameStop stock, right? It looks hot right now, right? And like I said, much of that is predetermined by law, what they can and can't invest in, that kind of thing. The state auditor and inspector, which almost nobody knows about, which is actually an important position because they keep track, unlike the treasurer's office, which just keeps track of the money. The auditor and inspector's office is responsible for making sure that the money is spent in accordance with the law, right? And that's their first and most important duty. And they do that for all state agencies, right? And they do that for all counties in Oklahoma. And every year they have to do this kind of audit that looks at where this money got spent, how did it get spent, was it spent in the right ways?
So that office is like pretty big, right?
It's not as big as you would think, but it's got a big responsibility, right? Yeah.
Is it the, Department of Health that was the last one that came under like audit criticism?
It did. If you remember the whole controversy over Epic and Epic charter schools, it was the auditor's office that did the audit there, which is disputed, by the way. Epic has challenged that.
Isn't it like there's sort of like a thing going on with Epic and Rose State?
Yes. So Rose State, if I remember right, there was an elementary school over here off of 15th, right?
Mm-hmm.
It closed down and Rose State acquired that property. And now we lease it to Epic in some form or fashion for them to operate one of their actual physical facilities on it. And so, and I guess it's been 2 or 3 years now that we've done that, I think. They can conduct performance audits. So the difference between a performance audit and the regular audit just is about, did you do this legally, right? A performance audit is, are you doing it effectively, efficiently, right? This kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more challenging of an audit, but it's not required to do performance audits as a regular part of its business. So they basically, if an agency requests a performance audit or the governor requests one of an agency or something like that, then the auditor's office would do that, but they don't just do it on their own.
Does the state auditor, they ever inspect like private businesses?
Not to my knowledge. Now, Epic technically is a private business, but because it is a government contractor, in other words, the business that it does is business that the state has paid it to do. Okay, so only they can in some ways, they have some ability to audit what's going on there, right? But in most cases, no, they can't audit like Sonic Corporation or, you know, the mom and pop shop down the street. That's not their authority.
So who looks over those? Just the IRS?
The IRS primarily does, but most businesses contract with outside like CPA firms to do annual audits with them to make sure that, because they have to worry about legality issues as well.
State taxes, is that ran by the IRS or is that?
No. So every state has their own tax collect. So Oklahoma has the Oklahoma Tax Commission, which is responsible for collecting state and local taxes. So state sales tax and local municipal sales taxes get collected by the OTC. Then it transfers the local portions to those municipalities. The state income tax gets collected by it. Any other kind of state taxes will run through it. Yeah. Then the IRS collects any federal taxes. So if you own a business, you got to know who you're paying taxes to and which one to send what to, right? Because you're going to have all of those, right? I'm going to have Social Security taxes, federal income taxes, state income taxes. I might have, if I import anything, I might have some excise tax or not excise taxes, but tariffs. I might have some excise taxes depending on what kind of business I'm in.
What are tariffs? Who do they affect? They affect the person buying product or the person selling the product?
Yes, they do not affect the person selling it, except that their sales will be lower, right? But they affect the buyer. The buyer is the person who has to pay the tax.
So when say the federal government puts tariffs on another country, that's only affecting.
It's a lie. They're not putting anything on the other country. They're taxing U.S. businesses and citizens.
Is that just a way to push them to buy somewhere else?
It's like, yeah, it's like, we're going to raise the price of this foreign stuff, so you'll be enticed to buy American made stuff, right? That's the whole purpose of them. Well, I won't get into that, but anyway, yes, you're on track there. All right, let's see. Labor commissioner, right? So labor laws, both at the federal level and state level, are enforced by the Labor Commission, right? So this is one of the larger agencies in the state government. And they deal specifically with manufacturing, mechanical, and transportation industry. So they have much more authority there than, say, your tech company down the street, right? Which would not necessarily fall in one of those categories. But they do any state or federal law that is broad-based and relating to workers is enforced by the Department of Labor here in the state of Oklahoma. What else do we have? Oh, well, where did her pick? Oh, I keep forgetting. Yeah, the superintendent of public instruction, right? So over public schools in Oklahoma, okay? They're not over universities and colleges. The State Board of Higher Regents is the authority over universities and colleges. Yeah.
What about charter schools?
Yes, if they're a public charter school, then they would fall under the auspices of the state school superintendent. Private schools would not. Okay.
How do private schools get their money? You get it from property
Tuition.
taxes? Oh, tuition.
Tuition primarily, yeah. And a lot of private schools have some kind of sponsor, right? So really, like Catholic schools, the Catholic Church is going to subsidize those to some extent. Other religious schools, you have some church or religious organization that subsidizes the activity in addition to the tuition they charge. Let's see. But other private schools that aren't religious based are basically, they're funded through the tuition that they charge their students. Yeah. Let's see. So the state school superintendent does have to work with the State Board of Education in managing the public school system, right? So the person in that position can't just say, this is what we're going to do and make it happen. It has to be in accordance with whatever the state school board says to do. Okay, so now they do run the state school board. I mean, in effect, they chair the meetings or the head of the state school board. But that is a group of people who, again, are elected or appointed, if I remember right, you guys might have to, by governor, speaker, and president pro tem, right? All get to appoint members on the state school board. And so she has to work within that environment. State insurance commissioner, another position that virtually nobody knows exists unless they're in the insurance business or they have a dispute with their insurance company, right? Again, administer state and federal laws regarding insurance companies. They certify insurance companies to work in Oklahoma, to operate in Oklahoma. And they collect the taxes that those businesses pay to the state. They collect those taxes and then disperse them to wherever they're supposed to go. Right. So again, now who don't I have on here yet? Well, who have I left off? Elected members of the executive branch that I have not mentioned as of yet.
That corporation committee.
Correct. Right. The corporation commission. Remember, it acts as a body. Corporation commissioner by themselves cannot really do anything. They function as a body. They are elected. Two are going to be elected. So they serve 6-year terms. if I remember right, 2 are elected in one cycle and the other one is elected off cycle. So they're never all up for election at the same time. They do what? Does anybody remember? What do they manage or what are they responsible for regulating?
Like the stuff that have to do with like, utilities maybe and stuff like that. That's why one of them was on the news when the snow storm came.
Public utilities, okay. Energy companies, so like Devon Energy, Chesapeake, any of those that are drilling, companies that deal in mining and stuff like that would all fall under their banner. And transportation companies, so railroads and trucking companies, right, all fall under their regulatory authority.
Like OG&E and OEC, they report to them.
Yes, yes. So if OG&E wants to, because OG&E isn't a monopoly, right? So the state or different municipalities, depending on how it's set up, have given them monopoly authority to provide electricity or whatever to the area's residents. The Corporation Commission regulates them so that they cannot, raise the price of their electricity beyond a certain point, right? So if OG&E, ONG, Public Service Company of Oklahoma, if any of them want to raise their prices, they have to go to the Corporation Commission and request that they approve the rate increase, and then they have to justify it. They have to say, here's why we need to raise our rates. The Corporation Commission is not obligated to allow them to raise their rates. And there have been times when one of these companies have come and requested it and they've said, no, we're not going to do it. So, but that's what the Corporation Commission does. So there you have it. There's the executive branch of Oklahoma in a nutshell. It's all right now because everybody on here that we've talked about is a Republican. You don't have the kind of conflict that you might have if you had some Democrats in the mix, especially in some of these Attorney General's office, although there's been conflict between the Oklahoma Attorney General and the Oklahoma Governor, state school board, and there has been, although it has not been as public as the rift between the Attorney General and the Governor, certainly the state school superintendent and the governor have had their disagreements. Yeah.
Speaking about the superintendent and the governor, what, like, is it because like they're not opening up schools fast enough?
I think that's one of the issues. As well as I don't think the governor, I think the governor's skeptical about the superintendent's, what he might view as the superintendent's attack on Epic charter schools and other types of, not just Epic, but other kinds of charter schools and such in Oklahoma. So while again, they haven't had this kind of public rift that you've seen with the Attorney General. I think there's been some conflict and at least disagreement between them. But if you had a Democrat in one of those two positions, the conflict would be much more seen and much more visible than what you see now. So it's just one of those things. You don't see it as much because you've got all Republicans. That probably won't always be the case. I don't know how long it will be before a Democrat gets elected to another statewide office. You're going to be okay. What are you going to run for?
Government.
Okay. All right.
Completely change around the entire aspect of it. You don't want to make Oklahoma City the largest city in the Western Hemisphere?
What's that?
The largest, populated. I want to have over 20 million people living in the city alone.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, the largest city so far in the Western Hemisphere is Sao Paulo.
You're gonna drive property values up the roof.
Well, I also.
I'm gonna have to get mine now.
Oklahoma, the leading state with the most millionaires and billionaires in it.
That'd be nice too. That's one of the Oklahoma's problems historically has been, we've just basically been a poor state, right? We have, population wise, we don't have the kind of incomes that you see in other states. Now, Oklahoma's recruiting point has always been, yeah, but our cost of living here is way lower than everybody else's too, which is true, right? We have an abundance of land, abundance of natural resources and such, and it doesn't cost a lot to live or work here. But we also don't have some of the amenities that you see in other large cities like Dallas or Houston or even Kansas City to some extent, or Denver. So kind of a trade-off. But yeah, no, more power to you. Go get them. Maybe we can become a destination for a few billionaires. That would be nice,
You
right?
know, Oklahoma's not very willing to the national politics platform. I
Mhm.
want to make the DNC headquarters in
Ah,
Edmond. That's why I want to make the DNC headquarters.
That seems a little
And you
of a
know-
stretch,
And
but
like,
you know,
how CPAC has theirs in Orlando.
right.
Democratic CPAC. I want to host and talk.
Okay. I got you. Well, I think that's about all I've got. I will have these slides. I'm going to finish out. I'm going to put the corporation commissioner stuff on there. I'll have these up in Canvas. I'll have the stuff for this week, the slides and whatnot for public admin. I'll have that up too. And then hopefully over spring break, I can get a few weeks ahead, but I'm not promising anything because I have some writing I have to do over spring break too. And I've got people who are grading my stuff too. But hey, I've got now, what's it, about 11,000 words written. So that's not bad.
How many did you say you need? Like 20,000?
20,000 for the literature review. Roughly about around 100,000 for the entire thing, right? So I'm 10% of the way there, right? And we'll see how that goes. So enjoy your spring break. Don't enjoy it too much, but enjoy it. Take some time off. And I will see you guys later on. Andrew, have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
All right. You too.
Ask on the project summary, yeah.